Hey ladies, it's time for December book club.
Yay! Pam's here too.
Hey ladies, thanks for letting me join you tonight.
Of
Happy to
course.
be here.
We are super excited. We are going to talk about the book One Day in December. First, let's all say, oh, yep, Ashley's holding up the book.
I don't know if it'll show it because I have to be talking, but it's not, the little box is not coming around me, but oh well.
Yeah, it is actually. You just can't see it.
Weird. It's showing up as around you only, so.
No, I talk a lot.
You're the star.
Oh my gosh. I was at the mystery book club for the McFarland Library here in Wisconsin for the November book club. And I had mentioned or the October. I can't remember if it was October or November. No, it must have been October. September? I mentioned to the book club ladies that we needed a book for December. And I was really looking for a book that would talk about all the different holidays around the world. And lo and behold, there is none. And if they do exist, it's children's books, which there's nothing wrong with children's books. But I was looking for something that talked about what this country did over the holiday season or what this country did. Didn't necessarily need to be Christmas, but I was thinking, what do other countries do for the holidays? That was a wash. Then Ashley and I were on the phone and we were talking about book club and what it could be. And Ashley said, how about One Day in December? It looked really cute. And I said, all right. Then I went to Mystery Book Club with the ladies and said, hey, we're looking for a book. Who better to ask than the librarians that attend the Mystery Book Club? And they gave a few suggestions and a couple people gave a few suggestions. And toward the end, I said, well, we're thinking about One Day in December. And Jen, who hopefully will be listening to this episode, said, oh, I've read that book. And I said, Jen, come on the podcast and talk to us and tell us what you thought about it. No, she was kind of shy, but we did end up doing One Day in December. And let's talk about if we liked it or didn't like it.
Who wants to go first?
You can.
Should I? Okay. I will go first. Okay. It's hard for me to find a book that I don't like, but I very much enjoyed this book. I thought it was very cute and it's very easy to read. That's like one thing that I judge books on is how easy it is for me to read and how like hard it is for me to put down. And to be honest, I think I read it in like 4 days or something. It was very quick, but it wasn't like one of those ones, like it's a hefty book. It's like 390 something pages long. And it only took me, I read like over 100 pages a day, I think. So it was I thought very good. And we can go into, after you guys have reviewed, we can go into like the parts and stuff that we liked and like a little bit more of an overview. But yeah, I very much enjoyed it. And I'm very into like kind of sappy things. So it's sappy in a good way, I think.
It is definitely not a fairy tale, or it doesn't start out that way. I listened to it on Audible. So I was going to get it on my Kindle. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to listen to it on Audible. I thought the author or the narrator was very easy to listen to. She did have a British or English accent, but it was nice to have on in the background and to really have to pay attention to it. So I listened to it in a few days.
And you liked it?
I did, yes. I was frustrated at parts, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
I did read it on my Kindle. And I really liked it. I am not into sappy. I'm not into romance. I'm not into any of that. And even I enjoyed the book.
That's what I'm most excited to hear about, the reasons you liked it, because I know that you are a little bit, you're very discerning about the books you like. So, yeah.
I liked it because to me, it seemed real life. But then several parts of it seem to be absolutely not real life.
Yeah.
I could imagine them going to the bar. I could imagine them going to house parties. I could imagine them being on the beach. The
Mhm.
author did such a great job with describing the situation. I could picture the sandwich, I could picture the whole thing. What I didn't like was what I would consider, and Pam and I have talked about this ad nauseum, what I would consider the lying or the not being truthful or
Mhm.
not coming out and being honest. Those were the parts that I didn't care for, but in reality, most people are not like me, and most people are not
Mhm.
direct, and most people are very passive aggressive, and most people are just passive in general and non-confrontational. So
Mhm.
for that, I too thought it was realistic.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good just depiction of just I mean, for those of I mean, how in depth do we want to go in this? I don't want to I guess we should already say spoiler alert, like first of all.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, like if you're reading or watching this podcast or listening to it, you have to assume that you might hear some spoilers, but just just the whole idea of like missed connections and such things like that seems really realistic to me because there are very that happens a lot in life, especially when it's like you meet friends or something. But I thought that it was very realistic in that regard, and especially like you mentioned the passive when she finds out, that it's her friend who is actually dating this guy that she has been just like dreaming of, and based on I guess the way that the author sets it up and how deep their friendship is, like what do you say in a situation like that? You don't want to come out, and especially I think she mentions it later on in the book, when Sarah does confront her, is like, what was I supposed to say? You told me that you thought this was the man that you were going to marry. What am I supposed to say? That he's the one that I saw at the bus stop that day? It's hard. She cared about her friend even though she was thinking different things, but I don't know. That was a tough situation. The whole time I kept thinking about, what would I do in this situation if it was like reverse and I was in Laurie's position. It's fascinating because I don't know.
I think that's funny because that's what I brought up to Robin this morning. I'm like, that just makes me so mad. But then I think, would I be forthright and say, you come to
Mhm.
me and say, this is the man you're going to marry? Okay, what is at risk? If
Mhm.
I fess up and say, that's the bus boy,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to lie, you guys, just up until just now, I thought he was like a bus boy, not necessarily the boy on the bus. I don't even know.
I can't even comment
They
in a
established
public
at the beginning.
I cannot even comment in a public setting that comment, Pam.
I just
Pam,
literally was like, oh, that's where yeah, it's literally like in the
it's
first
like in the
sentence.
first sentence. It's on a bus stop. Something like that. That's
I work
funny.
in a restaurant setting. I think busboy, he's
Yeah.
going to clear my table and wipe the menus.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
I totally get that. That's where you were coming from. That is hilarious. Okay, so knowing that now, though, that's interesting. Does that make you think differently of him, knowing that? But then, how did you think he was a busboy but worked a professional position and worked in radio? You thought it was just like a part-time job, or he worked two jobs?
Yeah,
They do mention going to bars a lot, so
right. So, I was just like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, he's on the radio at night, and okay, great.
That is fascinating. Honestly, how you were the terminology alone.
Just
Truly,
the bus boy, I think a few times in here.
yeah.
Well,
Now I got a reference.
and she searches for him for a year, and they refer to him as the busboy, and I'm like, wow, wouldn't you just go back to the restaurant that you met him at? Or I'm never going to be invited on here again. I don't even.
That changes everything, I feel like.
So I might have to reread this, thinking this man, his name is Jack,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Jack is being a busboy and he's
Yeah.
that's a whole new gig.
I just thought he was a busboy at a restaurant. Yes, I know the bus pulled away and they were longing for each other in the fog and all of that, but I'm like, did he still have his apron on from bussing tables? Like, I can't make this up either. I just want you to know, like, literally up until this moment, that is probably the truest moment I've had for a while.
I
should-
I don't even know how I'm going to promote this on social media. Terminology matters. That's probably what my first
I
line
mean,
is going to be. Terminology matters. That's hilarious. Context. It's really
fine.
context.
It's context, yeah.
Mhm.
And perspective, like, oh, well, he's a busboy. For me, working in a restaurant, I thought he was a busboy.
Yeah, feel like nothing wrong with that.
Let's talk about the guy from the bus station, Jack, otherwise known to Pam as the busboy. What did people think about Jack?
I have mixed feelings about him. I like him, obviously. I think I didn't like the way, I mean, it's interesting in this book because there are multiple narrators, so it's Laurie and Jack. I didn't like how, like you mentioned, Robin, how passive he was in certain, especially passive and just so stubborn, I think maybe is the word for it. Especially when he goes through the wreck and the whole fallout from that, and how he just was so willing to push people away. And I know it was probably out of ego and just stubbornness, and probably hurt because I think at that time, was Laurie with Oscar at that point?
Mhm.
I think they were together by the time that he was injured, but it's just, I didn't like the way he handled that. But overall, and I mean, and the fact that they of course cheated with each other a few times, but it's hard it's hard to judge people, because in situations like that, it's interesting because we're seeing their like thought process while it's happening. And it's hard to judge because like even in real life, sometimes things just happen. But overall, I liked him. I thought he was an interesting character and very dynamic. And I liked the fact that he was willing to go after the things that he wanted. I just wish he was more forthright about, especially after him and Sarah had broken up, about his feelings for Laurie, even given the fact that she might have been in another relationship, because I think there was a period of time before she was with Oscar, but after he was with Sarah that there possibly was, or maybe I'm misremembering.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's the whole point of the book. But yeah, I just wish he had said something.
Pam, what are your thoughts on Jack?
I thought Jack was kind of a jerk. Several times, like, I think my heart broke for him, knowing that he was harboring this feeling, like hanging out, watching the Twilight series, with a big bowl of popcorn or whatever they were doing. And it's like, here he's this woman who slipped through the fog on the bus, is right next to him. And he's with this other woman who he thinks is going to make him happy. I just thought he was really ornery and crabby and just kind of a jerk. But
I will add the fact that he was just kind of trying to numb his feelings with other women. I think I like him as a character. I don't know that, if I met him as a person, I don't know that I like him that much. But yes, yeah.
I agree with that. So I think even as a character and trying to sympathize or empathize with his position and what had happened, I don't know. I guess I think what would have happened if either one of them would have just said to Sarah, hey, this is the busboy. I saw her, but how do you do that and risk losing your best friend? And
at first he denied that he knew her too, which I think was also a really jerk move, especially because she was very vulnerable at that point when she was having that first conversation with him. She was very vulnerable, and he still denied it to her, even though I think she deep down, she knew.
Yeah. I think that's what really set me off too. Like, really? So now you're going to lie to her again? Like, first you lied to, well, I guess not lying, but lying by omission even. And then you're going to lie about being the guy on the bus or the guy at the bus stop or whatever. I don't know. I just thought he was kind of ornery. And I know some people have mixed reviews about him. Oh, it was the accident. He was a jerk before the accident. I will say I did warm up to him and get goosebumps at the end of the book. So
I agree with both of you. I liked him as an overall character,
Yeah,
but in the real world, I would never tolerate
his behavior.
his
Mhm.
behavior whatsoever. Like that
Yeah.
would not be somebody I would want to hang out with.
No.
I think no, not at all. Because I judge people by their character. And if you're not going to be honest, so I wouldn't have known though at their very first meeting that even though he knew who Laurie was, he didn't say anything. But I could have believed for a little bit that he didn't really know her. What I didn't like was that Laurie didn't say anything either. And this is
Mhm.
probably where my character flaws would be is I choose to be honest over probably a friendship.
Mhm.
This book made me realize I would have said, "Oh my gosh, that's the busboy." Even though my friend Ashley or Pam are like wildly in love with this person. In my mind, I'm like, you've only been out on like a few dates with them. You're
Mhm.
not that in love with this person, and you don't even know this person enough to be in love with them. That would be my rationale. I would have said something. I would have said, "Oh my gosh, I saw
Part
you at the bus stop." And then I would have waited for Jack to say something. Yeah, we all know I would have said something because I wouldn't have thought I would have ruined my friendship because they had just started dating. That's not being in love with somebody from my point of view.
Right.
part of me wondered that same thing though, because as I was reading that, like looking back into the book, like once Sarah and Laurie had talked about the fact that like when it all came out before the wedding, I was wondering that because I was trying to figure out in my mind, I know they had only been dating for a little bit, but at the same time, the things that Sarah was saying, like, this is the man I'm going to marry and such, like, I think those were very genuine emotions. And I wonder, even if she was truthful at that time, I think Sarah still would have been a little defensive. Because if like if I go to like if I go to you, Robin, and I'm like, oh, this is the man that I'm going to marry. And you were like, oh no, but I've already claimed him. He's my boyfriend. I would have been like, but what, like, wait a minute here. Like, I think I still would have been very hurt by it.
Mhm.
Even if I'm assuming that they had been on a little bit more than a few dates. Cause it sounds like she had been talking about him for a little bit, but I just wonder about like, I don't know that there was a good time to talk or to say anything without some sort of reaction from Sarah. I think it would have been minimized at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't great that she held it until then, but I think Sarah still would have been a little bit confused by it.
Do we all agree or think that the kissing was cheating?
Yeah.
I do too. Pam, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yes.
So
It-
man and woman, yeah.
Yes.
Because it wasn't like a pack. It wasn't
And there was feeling behind it.
yeah,
Yes.
it was
There was
like
intent behind it.
yeah. So for me, that's a little different than a little pack. I mean, this was like deep.
Mhm.
It wasn't like a random person at the bar either. It was they had deep feelings for each other and
Yeah.
acted on those and knew that it could have gone farther. It's one of those things like they knew the feelings they had for each other and did it anyways.
And oh, go ahead, Robbie.
I was just going to say, at any point, did you guys think that the book was going to twist and they were going to suddenly get together? Because I did after the kiss. I thought, ooh, this is the turning point in the book. They're going to get together now. How are they going to break it to Sarah? And that did not happen.
No, I never thought that. I thought it was just going to be this weird tango that they were going to do the whole book. I actually didn't
Pam?
expect them to get together at the end.
Pam,
I
you
did.
too?
Yeah, I did not see this as a fairy tale where they,
Mhm.
they have that one deep romantic kiss. But I think part of that for me is the fact that neither one of them were honest about meeting or about their intense feelings for each other or anything like that. So it's like, okay, so you're not being honest about any of that. Where do you go from there then? So I was like, I did not anticipate
Yeah.
them getting together at all, honestly.
Same. I thought it was just going to be this weird thing where they just never were together.
No, so the unromantic one, I was all about them hooking up at the end of this book.
Yeah.
When Oscar started his nonsense about not wanting her to be with him, that was just,
Yeah.
yeah, Oscar would have been long gone. Sayonara, buddy. But, and we all know I would not have been passive. I would have been right
Mm-mm.
there.
Direct.
But I thought this is the opening for the author to bring Jack in with Laurie, because Laurie's going to be single. Jack was just out there in Neverland.
I was
Yeah.
proud of Laurie though when she officially like told Oscar and like kind of broke that off. I
Yes.
was proud of her in a way because I didn't think she was gonna do it.
Yeah.
I honestly thought she was going to be pregnant.
I thought so too.
At that moment, I was like, oh God, please don't be pregnant. Please don't be pregnant. So I thought, nope, she's going to be pregnant. She's moving to Brussels. She's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
I didn't think she was ever moving to Brussels just because Oscar was such a
Yeah.
terrible husband.
Mhm.
I didn't think so at all. But I guess not terrible husband. Terrible husband in the sense that he didn't want her in Brussels and it was very obvious he didn't want her
Mhm.
there. But I also don't think he was cheating with that other lady
No, I
though.
don't think
I
so
don't
either.
think, yeah, I don't think that's it at all. I think his career overtook family.
They were a good match for where they were in their lives, especially in was it Thailand that they were at where they met? I think they were a good match for what they were both looking for there, which was like a little bit of freedom and such. And then they fell in love with each other's personality. But I think what is this term? Like you're there for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And I think they were there for a season. Like that was their purpose together, was to grow together, and it worked. And I think it just, yeah, it is what it is with them. But yeah, he was becoming a little bit of a jerk too about his job and just abandoning her and giving her false hope. I mean, that was the thing I didn't like about him the most, is that he told her one thing, this is only, I'll be back in London. This is only temporary. And then he kept saying, but he had no intention really of moving back to London. He knew what he wanted and he was giving her false hope, and that's not fair either.
Yes.
Can
Sarah.
can I talk about Sarah?
Yes.
Yes.
I loved her.
Mhm.
She was my favorite character. She was just a ball of sunshine, just a positive attitude all the time.
Free
She's
spirit.
free spirit, lit up the room, but very like grounded at the same time. Like I just enjoyed her character so much.
I did too. I liked Sarah because I think she was a great friend who was a
Mhm.
really good sounding board
Mhm.
for Laurie. And when Laurie talks about Sarah reminding her of her little sister Jenny, was it
Mhm.
Jenny?
Oh, I
It
don't
was
remember
like-
the name, but the sister.
Yeah. And I
sure.
was like, oh, that's like so sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah. I liked Sarah. I thought she was a good friend as well. I thought her reaction was very realistic. I could
Mhm.
see that in real life. I could see her not being there for the wedding.
Mhm.
That to me was real. I appreciated the realness of the author for that, because most authors I would think would say, "Oh, she was there for the wedding but then left."
Mhm.
But she didn't even show up for the wedding. So I thought that was super good. Just because it was realistic, in my opinion. When
think
you're
it-
hurt that badly, that seemed like a realistic thing to happen.
And I think it was realistic that she ended up coming back into her life, because I think at that point, it's like when she fell in love with Luke, it was one of those things where like time heals everything. So I think after she was able to see it from like, 1,000 feet, she's like, okay, I see. And now she was able to step back into that friend role, but she had to let time heal it because it was very realistic. Her hurt was real.
Yeah, she really loved Jack, and she gave Jack way
Years.
too many chances.
Like years. How long were they together? Like,
Too long.
yeah.
4 years, I think it
Yeah, I was
was.
about to say 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I liked the fact that Sarah left quietly and didn't create a scene or try to wreck anything for Laurie. Like
Yeah.
she definitely could have been like, she could have went to Oscar. She could have went to Laurie's parents. She could have done any
She's a
of
good
those things.
friend.
She was classy. Yeah.
but she was the whole time. That's why I love her. She's just like such a classy lady. Just so nice, so happy. And
Yes.
I was happy when she found her happiness because I think she really deserved it.
100%.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what about the part where Sarah and Jack had encounters? Do you think those were authentic? Because
What do you mean?
well, their paths cross, like at like Laurie called Jack before she called Sarah to tell her that her dad passed. And Laurie and Jack, or Sarah and Jack, ended up having conversations. And then that's when she said to Jack that she was going to move to Australia with Luke. And
Yes, I did think that was realistic.
yeah.
Yes, I did. Now, some people wouldn't, but in my world, I would think that would be a realistic thing. Yeah, I didn't even think twice about it.
I thought it was really nice that she and Sarah encouraged Laurie and Jack to maintain friends and have a relationship, even after they had broken up, saying like, he needs a friend. Or I think that was really important because, I mean, if you think about it, after 4 years of being in someone's life, even if you are like the third wheel or, whatever it is, like being the best friend of the person he's dating, like you do become extremely close, especially as much time as they were spending with each other. They did know each other at a different level. And after 4 years to just give that up, it's like giving up a whole friendship.
Did you think it was real, Pam? Did you think it was
Did.
realistic?
Yeah, I loved it. There was part of me that was like slightly jealous that people can't get along like that when they have a falling out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's so healthy. We're
When
not
you-
good together. So
Mhm.
move on and be good together with someone else or whatever. But
There's no reason to hold grudge. They didn't have any reason to hold a grudge. Yeah, like you said, just move on and be happy with each other. And like, it's peaceful. And they had a lot of good times together. And I think they recognized that I think they even say that, we had good times together. And it's just, he couldn't be what she needed and she couldn't be what he needed. And especially you could tell, I mean, as you go through kind of his monologues, it's like, you could tell he was becoming resentful. But it was that tension between the fact that this other woman is his girlfriend's best friend, and there's that spark, and like I'm sure he felt extremely trapped and like he couldn't be his authentic self. And again, but like to Robin's point, like, well, he should have just said it,
right.
like, but it shows how much he cared about Sarah. And not that that's like an excuse, but I think he did realize that Sarah was a very good person. And that, I mean, and your brain tells you, like, I should be with this person. She's got all the things that I want, but there's something that's not quite right. And it's hard.
Nope. Get right out there. Well, and it's the thing about, if they would have been honest right from the beginning, either one of them, if Laurie would have said something and Jack would have fessed up, they would have told Sarah. Hopefully they would have had some type of a conversation and Sarah would have understood, like, yeah, I get you think you're going to marry this guy, but you just started dating him.
Yeah.
And who's to say that Laurie and Jack wouldn't have worked out had they gotten together because of timing? I still am like a proponent of timing is everything.
Agreed.
And would that have really worked out? Maybe it would have, and maybe it wouldn't have. But I still would say just be honest, because look at the regret. A part of this too, I think that Jack was so miserable and crabby all the time is because he wasn't his authentic self, and he wasn't. Had he been honest and he and Laurie dated, maybe they would have broken up in 4 or 6 months and then he would have dated Sarah anyway. But I think he was miserable because he just was never happy with what had happened. And so therefore he went through how many years being miserable.
Well, what I had to keep telling myself the whole time is like, even though I was frustrated by some of those things too, is I kept telling myself, I think when this happened, I think they were both like 22 or something. They were really young. And I keep thinking to myself, putting in my shoes and thinking, what was I like when I was 22? Probably I didn't have nearly as much wisdom, and I would have never, like, me at 22 would have never done the same things as me as like 30 now, where it's like, okay, I don't see myself, I would have fessed up quicker, you know, like if that was the case. Me at 22, probably not. I probably would have just gone with it, and I wouldn't have, I probably would have been miserable, but I wouldn't have said anything probably. But me now, maybe differently. Be like, now I have more wisdom. So
Wise.
yeah, it comes with just age. I think you just have a lot more life experience, and
Well,
yeah.
and listening to your friends and going through relationships
Yeah.
yourself. I
Mhm,
mean, just look at what 10 years has done for all three of us in any
mhm,
decade of our life. It doesn't really matter
mhm,
how much you gain from those friendships and relationships.
mhm.
I don't know. I think back at 22, would I have still done the same thing? Yep,
We know you would.
probably.
You were doing that at 4, Robin.
Yeah, probably.
But it's so true. I mean, you and I, Pam, are a lot more
Mhm.
aligned with like the way that we are when we talk to people. I think we're definitely a lot more, we're just not as outspoken. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just I think you and I aren't, I don't know. I find it hard sometimes to be able to fully speak
Mhm.
my truth. I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, but it takes like effort on my part. Like it takes like a lot of bravery for me to do that. Like I feel so out of my comfort zone. It comes as a second, it's not second nature to me. Like it requires a lot. When I think Robin, it is like you're pretty good at just
Direct.
speaking your mind. Yeah, you're a lot more direct than we are.
But that also has its cons as well, as far as being sensitive, putting myself in other
Mhm,
people's shoes. Those were some really hard lessons when I was younger because I
mhm,
was so blunt and direct.
mhm,
Because that's how I appreciate
mhm,
being talked to,
Right.
because I just want to know right off the bat what's going
mhm,
on, where are we at, how are things going. But not most, I would say the majority of society is not like me. And so therefore having the tactfulness and being able to hold your tongue and being more sensitive and putting yourselves into other people's shoes is a much better quality at times than being
There's-
direct. So I see that side of it too. And I've tried very hard in the past several years
mhm.
to bite my tongue or to be nicer or to use different terminology and not be so direct and harsh. I also think that sometimes people prefer to hear that direct message, but they actually don't.
So I just want to touch on that. So I think, and we've talked about this quite a bit, you can be direct and not have to be harsh.
Mhm.
But the difference, I think, Ashley and I are more emotional. Robin, you're more logical. The logic behind it is X, Y, and Z, where maybe Ashley and I know we've talked about that before too. It's more like, well, I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'm just
Mhm.
going to tell you this. Like it's the warm fuzzies.
Mhm,
And it sometimes that gets lost in translation.
mhm.
You know, I'm
Mhm.
being nice to you, so you're not going to take it as direct as I need you to take it. Like,
Mhm.
so
Sometimes people don't realize, yeah, like I feel like kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, like I sometimes when I was younger, at least now it doesn't bother me as much when people are direct. I just understand that it is what it is. But before, like sometimes directness does come off as harsh in some
Mhm.
situations. And it would, being more emotional, you kind of, like you said, Pam, like it's not how I sometimes prefer it. Now it's like it's whatever. But
Mhm.
like I try when I'm not being direct, it's because I feel like it's perceived that I'm hurting you if I'm being direct. And so even though it's not, it's I'm like trying my best to like not hurt the other person, even though directness in itself is not hurtful. It's just words.
There have been times that I know, even when Robin and I have conversations, it's like, are you mad at me? Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like the way you said that, holy cow. I I appreciate directness in my superiors. I absolutely appreciate that.
Mhm.
The last two bosses, including my current boss, are very direct. It's like, hey, this needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. I like that. There's no gray area for me. There's no,
Mhm.
No confusion. Well, sometimes still.
It's the busboy thing.
Yes. Still going back to the busboy.
All right.
It
the
wasn't
end-
bus stop boy. It was busboy.
That's true though. I mean, it could, but you also have to remember, I don't know what they are in London though. So is a busboy still called a busboy in London? Or is there another term for it? Because maybe that's why it's in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Because like to us, it might be confusing, but to someone who lives in England, like it may not be confusing.
Let me look this up. What are busboys called? Oh, they're called a waiter's assistant.
There we go. Yeah. So it's
Okay. I thought it was a good book, but I will also say this, if it wasn't for the twists and turns and all the, I want to say conniving, and there wasn't any, but it would not have made it as interesting of a read as it ended up being.
mhm,
If Laurie and Jack had gotten together earlier in the book, I don't think it would have been that interesting.
mhm.
I definitely agree with that. I did like the book. I did like the twist and turns. I really was hoping that they would get together in the end, and they did. Everybody was happy in the end, so that makes me happy. Would you read another Josie Silver book?
Personally, yes, I enjoyed her writing. I thought she was very easy to read.
I agree. I would definitely read another one of her books for sure.
Yeah, I actually, funny enough, I was looking for more of her books like last night because I finished it like a couple days ago. And I was just like, oh man, like I really liked this story. So I don't know I don't know if all of her things are like love stories or what they are, but I did like it.
I was
What did
just
you-
gonna say, I wonder if that is through and through her writing style. Because there's
Mhm,
some
that's
authors
true.
that can write like, holy cow, I never want to read another book like that again. But
It wasn't first person too, as narrator style. So I wonder if that's all her books or if it's this one in particular.
Hmm.
It was funny. I caught myself. I mean, I know it's not a movie, but sometime like the whole time I was like, man, I wish this was a movie. And I kept Googling like if people like had drawn pictures of them because I'm like a very visual person. And even though in my mind I knew what I thought they looked like, I was hoping that someone had drawn pictures or something. Because in the book you can kind of see, but it was just funny.
well, because they talk about her looking like Elizabeth Taylor in the beginning, right?
I believe so. I know that Sarah has the bright red hair, like Little Mermaid. I liked that was where they kept comparing her to a mermaid and but and he in my mind, I think they said he had light hair, but I don't think I kept picturing him with dark hair for some reason.
I did
Yep.
too.
I did too. And I kept thinking of Laurie as this homely person. So I don't
Mhm.
remember the Elizabeth Taylor thing.
In the beginning, she references meeting Sarah with the red hair down to her butt because she had this
Mhm.
super long hair or whatever,
Mhm.
and that she was more plain and simple, like an Elizabeth Taylor. How'd she say it? She goes more of a not a dress down, but more of like a simple Elizabeth Taylor. She didn't find herself striking like Sarah was.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I just kept picturing her as this homely person. Not terribly homely, but and then Jack kept saying how pretty she was and how simple she was. I'm like, okay.
I also pictured Jack I envisioned his voice and everything with dark hair. So I'd be curious to see what the narrator for Jack looks like. Is it because of his voice and his accent
Mhm.
that you pick up on the dark hair, or
Yeah, I
Was it
don't
a
know.
male?
what?
Was it a male or a female who read the book?
Jack was a male. They had a
That's
male
cool.
narrator.
I
Mhm.
love that. That's neat.
Yep.
Yeah, it was funny though, because I thought the whole time that he was supposed to be like very well dressed. Wasn't he like for the most part like very well dressed? But but then he showed up to like one of the parties in like graphic t-shirt or something. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like him at all.
Wasn't that his first encounter with Oscar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's not how he dresses at all.
Well, I thought that was very characteristic of showing how much he didn't care and didn't care for
Yeah.
Oscar. And he
Yeah.
was just saying, poo poo to you, Oscar, and I'll show you. And very
a-
offensive t-shirts.
Yeah, it was a juxtaposition because I think Oscar was very well dressed because he was the baker, but very clean cut, just like suits and ties, and yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. What did you think of the end?
I
liked-
loved it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought it was so cheesy. like way too cheesy. But I liked it, but I just thought it was so ridiculous. Like, it was one of those things where it was like she really did like pick the most cheesy, but it was like such a cute rom-com moment. Like, I did appreciate it very much. But I'm like, I don't know how realistic that was. So.
Yeah. I did like the end. I thought that was super cute. To call into the radio station, and wasn't she Romy or something like that, or Rana or Rona or
Rona. Yeah.
So
Rana, yeah, something like that.
She was super. Yeah, I liked that. And his assistant gave her a piece of tinsel to put in her hair, and all those little added touches. It's like, oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved the ending.
I'm just glad they did get it together in the end, because I think me and Pam said we didn't think they were, but like, I thought it was just going to be one of those ones. I think it was just because there are so many novels where they do get together in the end, and then the whole time it's just back and forth. I'm like, this is going to be the one that they just don't, and I'm going to be so disappointed in the end. But I think overall I just like the book because I think it was so telling about just like you mentioned, Robin, timing. Like, timing is everything in life. And like the coincidences that you come across, like, I'm like very big into that. I think it's so cool about like all the synchronicities and the coincidences and like the back and forth, and like how just timing wasn't right. And if they had gotten together 5 years earlier, it probably wouldn't have worked out the same, but it was like an inspiring in that way.
You were talking about earlier, I thought you were going to go down this path, but we took a different turn earlier in the podcast. Maybe it was you, Pam, maybe you had made a comment about, do you think that them running into each other was just a coincidence? So the shopping or the bar or the being on the street. At first I thought he might have been a little stalkerish, but then I thought, I don't know, maybe they really did just run into each other by coincidence. What do you guys think about that?
I think there's a part that Jack mentions in there that he knew her lunch schedule and knew where she would be, and he, not like to the extent of I am a stalker, but he did he did know where she was and kind of what her schedule was. So he forced that to happen a little bit.
I think it was a mixture of both, because I think there was a few times they did run into each other by coincidence, but like you mentioned, Pam, I think it was the wedding dress too, where like, I think he purposely ran into her when she was on that street and she saw the wedding dress.
Yes.
Because I did, yeah. All right. That's the part that, so maybe not stalkery, but he wanted to see her. But I thought this wasn't just a coincidence. He planned this. And how many times previously had he tried to run into her and just didn't?
But then it brings up the thing, why didn't they run into each other for a year then? Why that whole year did they not run into each other?
Maybe they gave up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, because I really still am confused about when exactly Sarah met him. Because they met, I can't remember how Sarah and him met. Was it something that had to do with TV? I can't remember how the two of them met, but
I don't remember
party
either.
or mixer or something. Yeah, they mentioned it in the book, but I can't. It wasn't important.
And I think they had only been together like a month before she brought him home to meet Laurie.
Yeah.
not enough to fall in love with somebody and think you're going to marry them. I'm sorry. No.
I know plenty of people who knew they were going to marry someone like a month in. How long do you think it takes for someone to decide if they're going to marry someone?
Well, I am because Matt and I did. Yeah, that part's true. However,
Ashley, we have this on tape, just so you know.
I'm editing this part out.
Robin, you're one of my case studies. Literally referring to you.
I'm wondering though, if you or Pam came to me and said, Matt's busboy, not the busboy at the Busted Nut, but the guy at the bus stop. I don't know.
Maybe
It's a different
like
perspective.
It is very different.
Looking back, I mean, maybe you knew, like, if I had said that to you, you might have been like, well, yeah, I've only been with him for a month. But I think looking back, like, you have been married for so long. So it's like, now you can be like, yeah, I felt that. It would have been different because you only would have been with him for a month. I don't know. I've like everybody that I know that has like really happy marriages told me that they met them and knew within like a month or two that they were going to marry the person.
Yeah.
But including you, Robin, including you.
Including me. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I will have to think about that now. If you or Pam came to me and said, that's busboy.
I don't feel like you wouldn't know until you were in that situation.
Yeah. I probably would have backed off, actually.
I feel like you're a good friend. Like, I feel.
You're a great friend.
Yeah.
But
I guess I'm a better friend than what I thought I was.
Yeah, like I feel like
probably
might have. Yeah.
I probably would have backed off because I would have thought, I mean, it's only been a month. I mean, we've only been on what, 5-6 dates.
I'm just going to say you're
thinking about
you're a little more competitive than being a good friend.
Competitive? What do you mean competitive?
No, I'm just messing with you. Like, oh, that's busboy. Well, may the best woman win.
Yeah. I am not competitive.
Now she's lying to us, Ashley.
Competitive, but maybe
you think so?
Yeah. Maybe not in like. Yeah, like I'm like the least competitive person I know. Like when people try to compete with me, I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like people in board games like do not like how uncompetitive I am. So I'm like, you can win if you want. Like
I just want to be included. So that's the big thing for me.
That's how I feel. I just like being here, guys. This is just a fun time for me.
Yes.
I'm in a fantasy football league. I'm losing so bad, but I just like to do it for the smack talk, even though I like it's not even smack talk. Like I just like to do it because I like to talk with people about it. It's
right. And Robin, your competitiveness doesn't fall into the men category. I just was giving you a hard time about that.
Well, when there's pizza on the line for a stuff challenge, yes, Dan and I will be competitive to make sure that you are paying for pizza. So there is that. And I do like my Garmin badges. I will admit.
Oh, over the top.
But see, I don't see that it is over the top, but I don't see that as competitive, just me versus me. I'm not competing with anybody else. I just want the badge for myself.
I can see that as competitive though.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Competitive is not a bad thing. Like I think sometimes it gets a bad rap, but being competitive can mean so many. You're driven to get the badge.
Like
your
achievements.
Yeah.
You just wait now.
You what?
You just wait now on our step challenge.
You're like 700,000 steps ahead of me and it's day 3. So but in my defense, I was on the treadmill this afternoon and it did not record all my steps. I'm not happy about it and I cannot edit it. So yeah, I actually think Robin probably sent some she la la message to my Samsung Health app and
She's not competitive because she just always wins.
Right.
She doesn't, because the moment you start winning, that's when it comes out. That's when the competition comes.
That's when she wakes up at 11:40 p.m. and hops on the treadmill because she's only 10,000 steps behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm
It's all
kidding.
in good fun.
No, it's fine.
I personally, I know this is off topic, but I personally like the battle, the competitiveness, because it's a way to keep you motivated, to keep you driven, to keep you going. I know I'm not going to win this week, but that's all right. I might win next week.
You've won plenty. Now we need to get Ashley in the mix.
Yes.
I have to get a device that logs my stuff. I'll figure it out.
Do you have an iPhone or an Android?
I have an iPhone,
Oh,
which I guess I could just get like an Apple Watch or something. I just, I'm just like so off of technology sometimes that I'm just like, yeah. So,
We love you, Ashley, no matter what.
oh, thanks. I thought about getting a Garmin or something, like because I can record my bike rides.
you can.
So I'm like, maybe that'll be what I do. I just don't need something sending my text messages to my hand.
No, I
I'm
don't
a
do
terrible
that.
texter to begin with, so I can
I
just
don't-
ignore them on my hand too.
I don't even have anything going to my watch.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And you don't have to. That's the nice thing about the
Yeah.
Garmin. But I
I think
regret
that's
sending
why I would get it.
I regret sending that Garmin back
Oh.
because I don't get badges like Robin does.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe you might have to order it again.
I
It's
know.
not till then.
You order it, I'll Venmo you the money. Shoot.
All right. For our listeners.
Oh,
anything
yeah.
else?
Nothing else for me. It's a good book. I recommend it.
Mhm.
I gave it a recommendation. Now I really want to read some of her other books.
Yeah, I definitely do too. Pam?
Yes, I would definitely be on board with reading some more of her writing, stories. I would love that.
All right. For March, that's our next book club.
Okay.
So we will be recording in early March. We now need to think of a book. If any of our listeners have any ideas, we would love to hear them. Or if the McFarland Mystery Book Club has any recommendations, Jen, I would love to hear them. Ashley, you want to close us out?
Yeah, so thank you again for listening. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a comment or a review. You can find us at candoanythingpod.com on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our website. But until then, stay awesome.
And keep reaching for your anything.
Bye.